Hey everybody, Tim Higgins. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video about MongoDB and how you can interact it with TDM and using Javelin. And if you really paid attention to that video, most of it was done through a batch file, right? So I thought we would do something a little bit different today. And this is going to be a long one. So I know YouTube has this ability to put chapters on things. So I'm kind of hoping that we can figure out how to cut that into pieces. If not, I may cut the video or it may just be a long video because we're going to cover a lot of stuff. What I'm hoping to do is teach you all how to build an extension. Now, I did a couple of videos a while back on doing extensions. I'm going to delete those videos. I know they had quite a few likes, but I'm going to delete them anyway because that was about 3 or 4 years ago and the video quality really wasn't good. And I've got better at my video quality since then. Now, with saying that, what we're going to do is we're going to build an extension that allows Javelin to actually do CRUD functionalities to Mongo. Now, I know it's not MongoDB, but I'm just going to say Mongo for short. So there's a couple of gotchas. I'm looking at the page. One of the reasons I'm doing this too is all this research is out there, right? You just have to find it. Now, if you go to Test Data Manager, Broadcom, I've got the page open here, develop and deploy custom extensions. This kind of walks you through it, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's very outdated. So what we're going to do is we're going to mimic this first, and then we'll go back and add Mongo to it. So that's why I said maybe we can cut it in chapters, or we may just jump straight into Mongo because this is pretty straightforward, but it kind of helps if you know what this works, what this does. So let's get started. The first of all, you can't, if you notice your references here, the presentation core and the presentation framework for Microsoft really was part of WPF. And it really doesn't exist anymore. Well, it does, but it's changed. So this doesn't work. And if you notice, it says go and download Visual Studio 2012, good luck with that. The Javelin is written on top of the .NET framework, or at least Microsoft. I can't say .NET framework, it may be C++, but, well, which technically is .NET these days, but still, it is written on Microsoft, and so therefore it uses Microsoft DLLs quite a lot. This activities was hard to find. This presentation framework was hard to find, presentation core, but I'm going to show you where to find all that now. So instead of downloading Visual Studio 2012, because it will argue with you about adding these, it'll say that it's not compatible. Now I know there's workarounds and all that, but I'm going to show you the easiest way. Now I'm a huge fan of JetBrains. I've been using JetBrains for years. You can get the Community Edition. Writer is a great program that does .NET. Now it doesn't have the built-in Microsoft stuff. Here's the one I did yesterday, but we're going to do one for completely scratch. Of course, I had to build it to make sure I could do it before I did it. So what we're going to do, we're going to say New Solution. And here, this has to be a class library. Okay, now we'll probably build a console just to test it with. I always do that. But what I was saying is if you come over here and go to Developing Tools, I pay for the full suite. It's really not 100. I mean, not bad. It's like 200 a year or something for all the programming. And if you see my other videos, I do a lot of Python. So I use it for that. Data Grip, especially in TDM, it's a generic tool that does databasing. So you can do a lot of database stuff with it, which is really cool. In other words, you don't have to open Microsoft SQL, SSMS, to do Microsoft. You don't have to open up Oracle's, whatever the version is called, I forgot. But basically you can open Data Grip and it can support many different data types, including Mongo, which is really cool. And it's right here. I use it because I use it all the time. Here's Python. Here's that Data Grip. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's Python, the Data Grip, and the Writer. The other ones are really good if you do Go. Ruby. I studied Ruby, but I didn't really like it. I stayed with Python instead. Same with PHP. It was good probably about 5-10 years ago, but I've kind of walked away from that as well. If you do know my history, I've done a lot of C++ programming in the past. So C-Line is great for that. And WebStorm is great for doing just browser stuff. I've used that a lot. Just, if you're using like AngularJS or, any JavaScript frameworks. All this was built on top of IntelliJ. Now, IntelliJ is their Java IDE, and it's a beautiful, wonderful tool. Now, with saying that, where this all started from was way back in the day, they had plugins for Visual Studio. ReSharper was my favorite, and it forced you to program correctly. So it cleaned up the code and stuff like that. A lot of developers use it, which is great. So then I used ReSharper C++, and then I just started using the tools. Okay. But anyway, so let's save that. Let's close this. That's a little marketing point, but the key to that is use the free version, so it's not really marketing, but it saves you a lot of headache. So I did try to get this to work in Visual Studio. I probably spent 2 or 3 hours, and then finally I just said, you know what, I give up. It's not that I couldn't get to the DLLs, it's just Visual Studio was fighting me because the oldest it will let you use is Framework 5, and Framework 5, this has changed, okay? So let's go ahead and start Writer. And that's a good point. So now that Writer's up, let's go ahead. Notice I have this path, C source. I have everything in source. MongoDB. I'm going to change this just because yesterday I was doing stuff with it and I don't want to mess with what I was doing. So we'll say Javelin Extension. Okay. And we'll go ahead and save. Make sure everything else is okay. It's okay. We can change it afterwards because you have to. Okay. If you notice there, it forced you to do 5.0. And if you click it into here, your dependencies are going to be based on 5.0, but that's not what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to go change that. So go to properties. Can I make this bigger? Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry, it's not there. We want properties on our library. Notice our naming really sucks. So we'll change that here shortly. So let's go to properties. You know what? I'm going to do a new project because our naming is really bad. And it's really hard to rename it afterwards. So let's just say new solution. That's fine. And one of the key tricks that I found that works kind of great is if you stick with the Broadcom naming convention, it kind of makes things look better. So what we'll do is we'll say this is going to be C8. Now you don't have to. You can name it whatever you want to name it. But I'm going to name it Javelin .extension. Okay. And then what we'll do is Mongo. Well, this will be our class, right? So instead of class 1, we'll call it Mongo actions. Now back to over here, our SDK is 5. Notice it won't let me change it, 5 or 7. Those are the default ones for Visual Studio. The good thing is you can change them here a lot easier. Notice my framework. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my framework. See, it's not even an option. So I'll show you how to change that too. So that's about it. Yeah, so later on we'll go back and add a console application. But right now we just want to do this one. So we'll say create. And we'll just say new window because we'll trash that one. In fact, let's see if we can go ahead and trash it. I just don't like things lingering because later on when you start moving DLLs, you're like, okay, where was that again? Now, if you're not a C++, I mean, if you're not a Microsoft developer, don't worry about it. Some of these are pretty straightforward to understand. And I'm going to show you where to find, let me delete it. I'm going to show you where to find all these options. So even if you don't know it, it's a lot of copying and pasting too. Okay. So now we've got a class, and I'm going to rename this class, or just create a new class. My new class, we'll call it MongoDB Actions. And the reason we want to do that is because that's what's going to show up inside Javelin. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and create that. And I think that's okay for that. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm going to go delete this one. Again, I don't like things for lingering. So if you don't know how to use Writer, there's a lot of great videos out there. Maybe I'll do a video, but basically you want to refactor this, and in refactoring that, you can safely delete. So we'll go ahead and delete that. That's always good to do just in case you have references. Now if I go to my dependencies, I notice there's a 5.0. Okay, so what we're going to do is go to properties, and now we're going to change that. So we want to go to language 4.7. Maybe if it lets me do it. Let's see. Let's go up here. Maybe it's framework. So you may have to download the different. Yeah, here we go. You may have to download the different SDKs. So whenever you go, well, let's talk about that for a second because I may be jumping too far. What I would do first is install Visual Studio. If I can spell it, Visual Studio, the Community Edition because it's free. Okay, and in there, make sure you install the proper packs, right, that go with it, the language pack, or not the language packs, but let's see. I'll show you what it is. Visual Studio installer. When you come in here, you want to make sure you install the right package. So notice everything has community. So we'll go to modify, and then in here, once you start picking these, that's fine. Go to individual components. You want to make sure you get your target frameworks, okay? And I'll go ahead and get the SDKs too. So notice I picked some older ones here. That's what you need, okay? Now the fact that I've done that, let's go ahead and close this. Now I can go over here and select 4.7. I think I did 2, maybe. It's either 4.71 or 4.72. Let's try 4.72 first. To me, that sounds familiar. So we'll just stick with it for now. Just say okay. If we have an error, I'll cut the video and we'll go back. But notice now I have 2. That's what I'm going to show you. I have .NET 5.0 and .NET 4.72. I don't want the 5.0. So let's go ahead and say okay. And now okay. And now that's going to change my framework to here. For some reason, Writer's pretty cool. It allows you to have more than one. But the problem is then you got some conflicts with what your dependencies are. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start building out this over here, because I told you you can look at this documentation and follow it. Notice it wants these presentation frameworks. Well, let me show you where they are. So on your C drive, go to Program Files. I think that's where it is. I may have to find it. Microsoft SDKs, maybe. Let's see, give me a second. Inside your Visual Studio, it has versions, right? Like version 1, version 2. Let's see if it's in here. Nope. But that's where those DLLs are. You can always say, where is presentation framework? Well, I should have said PC, but that's okay. Let's see. One of these will tell you the path. Yeah, here you go. So this will tell you the path. Notice this framework is 3.0. We're going to do 4.0 because that's what we picked. And now if I go to here, I can see my frameworks. So it's program, reference assemblies, Microsoft. Well, I should have knew that. I'm sorry. Now I can see what's installed. 4.0 is not installed, which is kind of interesting. Where are we at? Are we on? Let's see. Because when I did it, I thought I did. Let's see. Let's go to, actually, you can just go to the root and find it there. Now that we know that's in. And so here, and reference assemblies, Microsoft framework. Huh, odd. Okay, I could have swore that I used 4.0, but maybe not. So let's just go back to, it says use 386. 86. I don't think it matters, to be honest with you, at this point. Let's see, I'm sorry, reference assemblies. And then I showed you this video is going to be long. Sorry about that. And from here's framework, and we'll go into, is it in here? Ah, here we go. So in here, we can go to 4.7. I'm doing 4.72, and we'll say type. And now here, I should see presentation. Here we go, presentation core. So here's all those DLLs that you can now include into your project. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that. And keep in mind that really was, C programs, reference assemblies, Microsoft framework, .NET, and the version 2.0, because that's what we're using over here. So what I did was I copied what I needed to a drive, right? So I need this one for sure. And we need the presentation framework, which is here. And then we need the system activities, which is here. That one really was hard to find. And we need this presentation. I think system draw and stuff is fine, but if it's in here, we'll go ahead and get it. Drawing, yeah, that's fine. And then drawing design, which is here. System exam, let's see, that should be down here. Yep, it's right there. And then system service model. If you don't know what these are, by all means, look them up. But a lot of them just have to do with how the UI is rendering. So, because that's what XAML is, presentation framework. We used to program this a while back. It's been out for a long, long time. So, in Windows base. So, I'm going to go ahead and grab these. I'm going to copy. Definitely don't cut, because your machine's probably using them also. And we'll just create a folder here. We'll call it new folder refs, and we'll place them in now. Now, that's cool for that. Now, the other thing you need is some Javelin stuff. So what we're going to do is look at some, you need the grid tools, Javelin Common. And the easiest way to do that is, now I have everything installed local. So if you don't, then, you have to go find it. What you can do is right click, and say properties, and then open folder. And what we need is, now you'll see a lot more stuff in here. Ignore that because I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes, because a lot of this doesn't come with this. And that's one thing I don't like about this, but I think there's got to be a way around it. I just didn't spend time to research that. But let's see. But worst case, you can install Javelin, right, on one machine and make this work, and you'll be good to go. Let's see. You'll see what I'm talking about when I get to it. It's just managing these DLLs. What am I looking for? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking for Javelin. Let's just see if I can type it in. Javelin, or is it grid tools.javelin? We need the extensions. So this one. Okay, cool. So we'll go ahead and grab it, copy. And we'll go ahead and close that. I probably should have just, that's fine. I'm gonna say I probably should just put that on my desktop or put a link. Okay, so now we've got that. So now what we can do is go to our imports. We can say references, and we can say add from a file. So we'll do desktop, and we're gonna, oops, not that one, that's the old project. Let's go to refs, go to references, and we'll just grab these. Okay, open. And that's gonna add those to our project. And now we're good to go, okay? At least for the base model. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to start programming this out, and we're gonna keep it stupid simple. So the first thing we want to do is inherit from, oh, let's add our references. That makes it so much easier, because then we have, you know, we have the little help there. So using, we need system. The good and bad and ugly is JetBrains knows that you're a developer, even if you're not. So it doesn't help you as much as Visual Studio does. Like, notice these aren't even there. But we need that one. We're going to need component model. Component model. And we're going to need, now I like to do logging. So we're going to do system, if I can type it, .io. That allows us to write to a log file. And then right now we'll just use our grid tools. So using grid tools, notice it helps you now, and we're going to do extensions, which is great. Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do is, not in our namespace, I'm sorry. In our class, we're going to inherit from our Javelin activities, if I remember that correctly, Javelin native, if I can spell it, activity? Let's go look at the thing. So what we're doing, so this says add that, we added those, we added that, that's good. Again, don't follow this. Oh, that's what we need to hear from right there. Okay, so it wasn't too bad off. Maybe I misspelled it. Okay, so it doesn't see it. Why don't you see it? Cannot resolve this. Am I missing one? Let's make sure that we're using our component. So I may have to save and reclose it. Yep, it's right there. Okay, so let's public class activity. It's kind of odd, it doesn't know what it is. Let's see, action. So I'm going to save and then close. I noticed sometimes that kind of helped recently. I don't know why. Maybe it just needs to repick up. Or you know what? It may be the version types. Oh, it's not Javelin. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that. Writer. Okay, we're doing this one. Now again, see, now it sees it. It's kind of weird. I guess it has to reestablish the references maybe, but that's fine. Okay, so, oh no, it didn't. All right, I'm going to cheat, and we're not going to use the other app, but I'm going to open the other app so I can see what version I used for it, because that matters. So I'm going to say open, I think it was, let's see, let's just do open, and then we'll do, I'll keep everything on source, and then these are projects I work on all the time, and then I think it's under MongoDB, yeah, okay, and then we did it under extensions. Was it this one? Maybe. Let's see what this one does. New window. Okay, whoops, wasn't that one. Okay, so I need to delete that one. So let's remember that one. So let's do file open. That's what's important, delete these, right? And I may cut this video out just because this is, you really don't care about this. But well, I guess it's important. The one thing I like with these videos is it's not really training videos. You see me working through this on purpose. I was going to try to delete that, but it's not going to delete it while I have it open. You see me working on these on purpose because you're going to run into the same problems I ran into. I know my naming convention was really bad on the other project, like usual. Yeah, it's this one. Okay, so this is the one that worked. So let's say new window. And I guess I could just walk you through this one, but it's better that you see now we can do a lot of code. So, we'll leave this one open and do some copy and pasting because that would save us a lot of time. But let me see what version this project is. So if I do properties on my solution, actually, I'm sorry. I think it's properties here on my version. It's still loading, so give it a second. Let's make sure I didn't fat finger any of these because I'm notorious for doing that. Aha, so maybe we have an issue here. Oh, we didn't include the common DLL. See, I knew there was a reason I screwed up. So let's go back to our Javelin, and then there is a common grid tools. So that's extensions, grid tools, Javelin. There should be a common. There it is. That's what we need. See, it always helps to, and let's minimize this, and let's delete that one. And let's go ahead and add this one over here to our reference. Now, I'm recording this video, so you can go back and look at it, but make sure you know these right here. Again, it's not a big deal. If I took the time and read this, I probably would have saw that I needed, I do need it right there. So I didn't need the extensions one. I needed the common one, so I added the wrong one. Okay, so that's fine. Let's go references, add from our file, which is on our desktop, references, and then our common, not our extensions. And now it worked. Okay, cool. So I'm not going to open that back up yet. My goal is to show you how this works, and then we'll open that up. Okay. So the first thing it wants to do, this inherits from, let me show you these. Oh, here we go. Here's a complete project. So I guess I could have looked at that, but that's okay. So the first thing it wants to do, we're going to build this, and I'll show you how this works. And then we'll get rid of this, and we'll build our own. So in the required, these are the arguments that get seen in Javelin. So let's go look at Javelin so you know how that works. So inside Javelin, if I just, I'm going to just create a new project. And if I just bring something over, let's not do SV, let's do something simple. Let's do our logging. Where's our log? Okay. So if I bring the logging over, these are the properties that get seen, right? And if you notice here, we've got a display, message, and timeout. Some of these are input and some of these are output. Well, that's what these are. Okay, these are the arguments. So I should have a first name input. I should have a second, number, I'm sorry, a number input. And these are integers, right? And then I'm going to sum it up as an output argument. Okay. And then the most important thing that you want to make sure you do is you override the execute method. Now, again, just copy this to get started. It's really not rocket science. Let's minimize this to get some real estate so we can see what we're doing. I think I got too many curly brackets. There we go. Now, with that, what we're going to do is the execute, this get, gets whatever this value is, okay? The socket gets whatever this value is. And then our output, what we're going to do is we're going to set our output, okay? Now the contents is the overall that goes in there. So it's kind of like using this if you're a programmer. And then your results is whatever the result is that you want to return back to the user. So let's see how this works. And then we'll go from there. So what we're going to do, that's very simple, pretty elementary. We're going to minimize this. I'm going to just basically build this. Okay, we've got to build. It's telling me some of my, this common uses AMD 64. That's fine, doesn't matter. That's not relative. If I should take the time and turn off these messages because I don't really care. The warnings aren't really important to me, even though they should be, but I'm not going to spend time to debug them. So now I came here, we're going to bin, debug, and we're doing, see that 5.0 is there, so let's delete it. Because we're not using 5.0, we're doing 4.7. And the only thing we truly need is this Java extension. So I'm going to copy it. Now here's where it gets tricky. Okay, so we're going to go here. And I don't think the documentation says this. So the documentation definitely tells you to use Visual Studio. You can't use Visual Studio. That's why I use Writer, just because the references, the DLLs don't match up. You have to create a folder if it doesn't exist called extensions. Okay, and then paste it in there. There's the one I used yesterday. Continue. Now that it's in here and we have 2, that's going to be fun. But you'll see the difference in a few minutes. Well, I got the dates here, don't I? So we'll remove the other one and add this one. But with saying that, this folder didn't exist. I had to add it, okay? So, and then you have to open and close Javelin quite a few times, which is kind of a cumbersome thing to do, but that's fine. The trick is just add it to your taskbar and delete it when you're done. But what we're gonna do is when you go here, then you go to Manage Extensions. Now I can browse to that one, which is here. The one from today is this one. We're gonna open it. And now if I say Show Extensions, it shows me mine. Now the title, that's why I said it's important, notice is MongoDB Actions. And then I can change what folder it falls under. So we'll call one called MongoDB, okay? And then we're just gonna import. And now it's gonna tell us to stop and reopen that. That's fine, but what I'm gonna do is go remove this one, okay? Because that was one from yesterday. And notice ours shows up there. And we're gonna go ahead and close this and reopen it. And then we'll have our magical new extension. Notice now we have a Mongo and we've got Mongo Action. So let's go ahead and say new. And we're just going to drag it over. Now again, this isn't really hard to follow. The documentation for this is online. The downside is that the Visual Studio was off and the DLLs were really hard to find for that reason. I had to, like I said, download the packages from Visual Studio's installer and then reference those in Writer, who doesn't complain, because Writer's like, you know what, you're an adult. If you don't know what you're doing by now, then oh well. So here is our actions that we are, actually they're called arguments. But if we go look at our arguments, we have the 2, first name and second name. These are required, which means I have to put something in there. So if you used Javelin enough, you'll notice that it says, hey, you got a problem here. That's where that comes from, is that required. So what we'll do is we'll say 1 and 2, and now our sum, we're going to put a variable, and we'll just create a variable called sum var, does that work? And I think it's an integer. I'll show you where to see that in a few seconds. Technically you would have wrote that, but yeah, it's an integer, okay? So what we're going to do is now put that, notice we still have the error because we have to put that here. And then what we'll do is we'll write that out to here, just so we can see it. Look, we have, have a custom extension with the number of, I'm trying to be cool, plus, and then our variable. And it's going to be plain because it's not a string, so we'll say toString. There we go. And now we'll just save this, and I'll save it to the desktop, and we'll call it maybe test flows. How's that? Now, it's really hard to bounce between best practices between, we'll call this MongoDB. Best practices between Python and C#, because in Python, everything likes to be lowercase with underscores, and C# doesn't like that. It does. It doesn't care, but it does say, hey, you're not matching your naming convention. So if I hit just run, so now we've got a number of 3. So that's it. It really works like that. And the other one, that's all these are too, right? These are just custom extensions. But now let's go clean this thing up. So I'm going to close that. And now we're going to do some Mongo stuff. So again, if you don't really know this, I recommend spending time, just kind of look through it. The only downside, like they even show you how to change the UI. I don't know if you can do that anymore. I'm not going to spend the time to do that because what I built is pretty, like you can change your widget icon. What I built works for me. So if you really, yeah, it tells you right there to put it, extensions. Okay. But if you really want to mess with this, then by all means go for it. Just be careful with setting it up. What I found was the beginning part of this wasn't true. Okay, this wasn't true. To an extent, it was true. It's just hard. Like downloading Visual Studio 2012. Yeah, like I said, it's 2023. Microsoft doesn't really give you much of an option anymore. So it's the whole force of upgrading. So we're going to close all that. Now, here's where I would probably cut the video if I feel like it's too long, because now we're going to do some Mongo stuff. Now with Mongo, yes, you guessed it, we have to download the Mongo driver, which I did for you already. So if you don't know how, just Google it. Well, you know, Mongo has some great documentation. So let's look at it. So what you can say is Mongo. So we're going to do CRUD functionalities, right? So our goal here, let's just go ahead and clean some of this up and then we'll talk about it. So our goal here is to do CRUD on Mongo through our extensions. So therefore, we need a couple methods. So what we're going to do is we're going to close this, and we're going to do our first method is just going to be a very simple, so if you don't know CRUD methods, think about it as, there's going to be a get. So I'm going to make everything public. So in case we need to run a command line tool to test it, but you don't have to. You can, is pass, no, it's not. We'll just say var temp equals, pass is Python, sorry. But you have to have something in there. So let me see what's going on. Give me one second, because it says we don't have our right. But that's going to say we're missing one. Give me 1 second just to play dumb. Do we have the right number in here? 1, 2, that closes that off. Notice we got try catch, because I do that in everything. Not sure. So let's do that here. And what do you want? Oh, we don't have a return. Duh. That's what I want. So we'll just say return nothing. That should work. Okay. The reason it did that is because I declared it as a string. And it's like, hey, dummy, you can't do that. But what we're going to do is we can go ahead and, you know what? Let's leave these alone for now, because I'm going to use this one as a template and then copy and paste for the other ones. But what we need, we can go ahead and do this just to plan for our actions. What we need is we need a get, a post. Well, okay, let's not do HTTP methods. We'll just do CRUD. So get, insert, and see CRUD is create. Well, that's insert. Okay, so that's fine. Create. We may use the word create, but that's okay. We can play with it when we get to it. Update and delete. Okay, so those are going to be our methods. Now, let's go ahead and just make this pretty and just say do. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to declare what is it going to take to make Mongo work for us. Okay, so in here in our arguments, we're going to need things like we need our URL, we need our database, that's going to be common, and then we need our collection, okay? And what I was going to say is if you do MongoDB C#, there's some great references out there, but I would stick with Mongo. Here we go. Now here, what you can do is you can go through here, but we're going to do our own. And you can find the DLLs that you need to download, and they kind of help you do that. These are pretty good, so we may stick with those fundamentals. And the point is, there's so much more you can do that I'm even going to care about doing, okay? But seeing that, I'm just going to go get the DLLs that I already downloaded. And actually, I'm going to cheat because I had a deploy folder yesterday. I'll probably delete it. No, it's in here. Okay, cool. And the deployment always gives the DLLs with you. All these other DLLs came, and you don't need them, but I'll tell you where they came from shortly. But we do need this driver, and we do need this one, okay? So we're going to go ahead and copy those, and we're going to go put those in our project. So we'll put these here in our references, paste, and now let's go to our project. And we may need more, but we're going to stick with those for now. And like I said, I did this yesterday, but I'm probably going to forget some things, but I'm going to try to make this quick. Oh, the drawing's there, but that's okay. I'm not going to add the drawing if I don't need it. Let's see. Now we're back in our references. What we need is our Mongo. We definitely need that one and this one. So let's go ahead and add those. Okay, so let's go ahead and collapse that back. And let's add them up here. So we don't need the component model right now. It may want to ask, you know what, we'll clean it up at the end because it may ask for it afterwards. But let's say here for Javelin, and then here for MongoDB. Okay, so the first thing we need is the Mongo driver. Okay, and then what we're C# always has to have a semicolon at the end. And then what we need also, because we're going to mess with their JSON, is the basin. Okay, if you don't know what that is, that's kind of their version of JSON. But you know, you can do a lot of research on that. It's a lot more detailed, but I don't want to go down that pipeline. These kind of bug me, so we're going to get rid of that. It's just saying you don't need that namespace because you already have it up here. Okay. Now what we need to do is create some arguments. So the first argument that I want to create, and these are required, it's kind of cute to put it all in one line, but I don't want that because this is required. There's also this concept of a description. So we're going to put that in there, description, and then here we're going to say MongoDB URL. Okay, so that's going to be our first one. So let's go ahead and we're going to make it a string. Okay, that's why I'm wanting to do this and not just copy and paste, because you kind of see it better when you're doing it, right? Versus just copy and pasting. Because a lot of people do videos and they just copy and paste. And when they do that, you're like, okay, how did he do that? Or they missed something important. So we'll just call these MongoDB URL. That works for me. And this is going to be the connection. And how I know that is this is, you know, you open up the atlas here, or the compass, I'm sorry. We need this. So that's your URL, okay? So we're going to go ahead and connect. And what we're going to look at is the concept of, I think, sample guides. Nope. Is it training? One of these, yeah, grades. Okay. So there was a good example online. Notice I got, what, 10,000? No, 100,002. Okay. So there was a good example online that did this example. So we're going to stick with that concept just for now. The good news is I kind of already know it. So we're going to stick with it. I don't know why you put a space there, so let's not do that. But we need a couple of these. Okay. So let's go ahead and grab this and let's get some real estate, and we'll skip a line there, skip a line there. Actually, I don't like skipping lines. So we'll do this and we'll call this our input parameters. Okay. Input, well, we'll call them arguments. Parameters, arguments, tomato, tomato, what are you going to call them? So that's that one, and we'll just use the concept here. So the next one's going to be database, right? Because you need a database that you're pulling from. Okay, and we'll just connect with some Mongo database. Okay, and technically I should make a capital C there just to be consistent. Whoops, I didn't for some reason. Okay, there we go. It's also kind of weird going from a Windows to a Mac. So Mongo URL, this one needs to be our collection. And we're going to talk about our data in a few minutes because that gets kind of tricky, what we need to pass in. Okay, collection. And then what we're going to do is we need the ability for the user to tell us what they want to do. So we're going to call this one action performed. Okay, action perform, and we'll call this action. Okay. Fair enough. And they're all strings. Let's get rid of, well, we'll leave the output for now. Let's think. Let's go ahead and work on this. I do want to pass in a save, which is just going to be a JSON. So we'll say save data, and we'll call, I'm thinking, okay, so save data. No, let's just rename it completely. Save data. Now, if you know how that works, you can pass in, again, we can go here, find a document. We're working on our get, okay? So this is our get method here. And with our get, we need to pass in a filter. Now, if you look here, the filter is kind of weird. So if I want to do a filter on student ID, it really wants it as a JSON format too. And now I can find it and it's going to give me those filters. Now I have 10 of those, okay? But we need to build this filter. So what I'm going to do is do this, because if you think about, I need my filter to give me data. So let's go ahead and we'll call this filter value, because it's a key value situation. Now, truth is, you could make these as JSON, and I did a video out there on doing REST with HTTP, and in there I mess with JSON. If need to be, I can do that when I can do it again or share it. But again, this video is going to be long, and I'm going to try to clean it up. We need a value. Now, notice I'm making all these required on purpose. even the ones that aren't needed for this track, because you're not going to use the same one every time. Like I'm not going to pass in save data and to the get method. But what I realized in Javelin, not everything can be null, because if you don't put an equals, an empty string in there, it passes at null, and that kind of doesn't do right. So filter key value. You know what? Yeah, I did do that one backward, didn't I? In other words, key should go first. So we'll say, that's fine. We'll take care of that situation right here. And we'll just put it above this one. So this will be, let's go ahead and put some notations in here. For saving data, pass in JSON string. Note could pass in JSON. And we'll talk about that in a minute because I did play with that one quite a few times yesterday to make it perfect. Now here, needed for a filter key value. Okay, actually let's key value, because it is a JSON and we'll just do it like that. Okay, perfect. So we're going to do one for update as well, but let's just get it going. Let's go ahead and change this as well. I'm okay with it being in one line. No, because I want a description. Like it's fine in one line if you don't put a description, but it gets pretty ugly whenever you try to do a description on it. So what we'll do, we'll just call this one requested data from MongoDB. Okay, and we're going to rename it. So this is going to be maybe just return data. And then here we're going to put this as a string. All right, cool. Now we got some stuff going on. All right, so, and let's just go ahead and say this is. Now, it's important to put these notes, okay? This is just best practice. I'm very, very, very picky about my coding, and I like for things to make sense. I like for things to have a flow, especially if you're doing programming. I mean, if you're doing parallel programming, or if you're doing shared programming, or if somebody else is taking this up after you, it's always good to have good notes. Also, if you take a break and come back, you'd be like, okay, what was I thinking here? And I do that a lot. Okay. So first thing we want to do, why is that one still existing? We should have got rid of it. Oh, it's right here. All right, so let's get rid of this one because we're not using it. Again, it's going to yell at us, be like, hey, these don't exist. But this is beginning to give you the idea of how this works. So what I'm going to do is, I do like using this word temp because these are truly temporary. So we've got a temporary, let's just get one working and then we'll copy the rest. How's that sound? So these arguments have a get method. So if I take Mongo URL, and I put it here. Now it's going to get whatever this data, oh, it's a string. And it's going to get whatever this data is passed into this variable, okay? Now I'm going to put some enters here because we're going to talk about this one in a few seconds. But let's go ahead and grab this. And you know what, let's do best practice. Let's just say var, because we're adults and we program correctly. And oops, and let's just create a couple of these because we're going to need them. All right, so the next one, and we're just going to go down the line, right? So the next one's database. So let's just say database, and then we'll come to the naming in a few minutes. So this one is our collection, our Mongo collection. Mongo action performed, that's pretty important. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. And then we'll go ahead and get save data, even though we're not going to use it until we do the get method. Until we do the insert, update, what are you going to call it? But we definitely, because we're doing the get first. Here, and then we go to here. Okay, and now let's give them some names. The names are pretty simple. I'll just stick with the same naming convention that's here, right? So let's do Mongo database. It's just basically this. Okay. The only one I guess I didn't do is the URL. I didn't put MongoDB in front of it. That's okay. But like I said, I do like the word temp because these are just temporary variables. Okay, filter data key. Okay, and then we'll just, because you can just grab it like that. Okay, and then we're going to get rid of this one. Now for our return, we're going to leave this blank for now. But basically we need to get our return as a result. Okay, so what we're going to do is the output is here. Okay, and we're going to set that there. And then for that, let me think. Let's just go ahead and do this. So we'll create a dummy variable called data equals nothing, just so we have something there. And of course we got to declare it. This isn't Python. And then here we'll just say data. Okay, perfect. So that's going to return a blank data. Okay. Okay, awesome. So now the next step, what I want to do is we've got to actually use this. So here in our try catch, I don't like this, but that's fine. What you can actually do is, now this came from that page. So what this is going to do, this is actually a Javelin command, and it's going to pop up that message inside Javelin. But what I like to do is write this to a log file. If we have time towards the end, I'll show you how to do that. But right now, let's just get this going. So the first thing I need to do is figure out what your action is. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm going to do that before I set that. So let's create a switch. And inside the switch, we're going to do temp MongoDB action. And I'm going to put to lower because I don't care if you well, I do care if you misspell it, but I don't care if you do uppercase, if you do lowercase, if you do capital, camel case, whatever, I don't care. But the first one we're going to do is we're going to do get first because that's what we're doing. And in here, we'll just leave it blank for now, but you always have to have a break. So we'll do it that way. And then we'll just do a default just so we kind of look weird. Okay, there we go. Either we'll probably never use it. Okay, so the get, we have to declare a method. Now, I know I can get resharper to do that for me. This is writer, but resharper's the cleanup behind it. I think it's Control-Shift-M will create a method, but I'm just going to do it myself because we have it down here, and I have a little bit more control over that. So let's just go ahead and create some variables. So the first thing I've got to do in my get is I need to do what? We need the URL, right? And then we need the database, and then we need the collection. Oops. And then we need to tell it the filter that we want to bring back. So we'll say data, let's just call it filter key. And then the filter object. Now the filter object is going to be kind of tricky, or value, I'm sorry. I was thinking it needs to be an object because I don't know if it's an integer or a string, okay? So we're going to make it an object. Now with that, let's go ahead and grab this and let's go to our get and let's put that there. And then what we need to do is var data equals, right? Because we're returning this. And then what we will do is pass in our, oops, I don't do VR because I already declared it. That's why, okay. So that's another good reason why it's declared above here. I thought we did. Oh, you know what? We moved it below. That's why. Okay, so let's put it up here. There we go. So now I can do this and we just loaded it with that data. So this doesn't get a string, but it does get URL temp. Okay. And then this one gets temp database. I do it this way to make sure I don't miss anything. Database. And then this one is temp collection. You kind of get where I'm going with this, right? Mongo collection. This is our key value. So what do we call that one? We'll start with temp. If I spell it right, temp data key. Okay, and the last one's data value. So I'll just grab it like this. And then just correct it that way. Okay, cool. So, and then of course, C# has to have a semicolon. So there we go. So now whatever we get back here, we can pass it to there, which then gets set back to our return. Kind of nifty, huh? All right, so what we're going to do is now make this happen. So again, you can look at the reference online. Most of it I kind of remember. So what we're going to do is we have to do our DB client, which equals our new Mongo. You have to set a reference to that. And that's going to be our URL. So we'll just call it URL. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Mongo client, not DB client. Mongo. I guess the new could give it to me. So MongoDB client. This one's what we need. Okay, cool. So now we got our client. Now we're going to need our database. Our database is going to be now we need our DB client dot get database, and that's going to be our database. Okay. And then once I got an error, let's call it maybe a key. Oh, duh, because we have it right there. So we'll call it DB database. I know it's not a good name, but it's because we declared it right there. All right. Okay. And we'll probably need to do the same thing with our collection because we can end up with the same mistake. So let's go ahead and copy this and let's get our collection. So our collection gets kind of weird. I'll show you why in a few seconds. We'll call it collection equals, it's Mongo get collection, but you have to declare it as a type. Let's see, Mongo, is it get? Oh, I'm sorry, it's database. No, not that, my bad. So once you have your database, you want the collection off the database. And again, don't take my word for any of this. Look online. It's really not hard. They've got a lot of great examples. Get collection, we need to declare it as a type. And this is where it's a basin document. Okay, that's where the other jar file comes in at. And then here, DB collection is what we're passing it. There we go, perfect. So now let's get some real estate because it's kind of annoying. So now we're going to do our data return. Data to return equal, if I can spell, return equals nothing. So we're declaring an empty variable. I can check if what this object is because I only care if two, but I don't think I need to do that. But we're going to do it anyway, just in case you have to do it. Okay. So if value, the way you check an object in C++ is you can say is string, and that's it. Okay. Python has the same thing, which is pretty cool. So if it's a string, what we're going to do is let's load it into a variable. Okay. Temp var equals data filter. Well, I'm sorry, we didn't call it data filter, call it filter value dot toString. And that's all we're gonna do, okay? So now we can just use it normal. So the trick with Mongo is I need to create a filter. And the reason I do that is because what if you're looking for an integer? What if you're looking for a string? Sorry, it was a coffee break. So filter, so this needs a builder. Okay, that's how you do it. So we're going to build a filter, and we want it to be a JSON document. Okay, and in that JSON document, we need to do. It's now using filter equals. So this is just link, L-I-N-Q. If you don't know what that is. Okay, so now we need to say filter key, comma, temp var. So that's how that works. And building the filter, all it's saying is in the filter, if it's a string, go ahead and make sure that you pass it this way. And again, I don't think you need this, but the only thing I did was I declared this as a string right here. And I passed it as a string. So technically, whatever this value was, as long as this object is a string, I don't think you need to check. Okay, but it never hurts to do that. So now we're going to do the next one. And what if the value is actually an integer? Because and you can also do a decimal, right? And that's why I don't think this is important. But just for this demo, we're going to do it this way. I'm just going to grab this stuff right here. And then put it there. And then this, and you can't do toInt, so you have to declare a little bit different. In C#, we're going to force declare. There we go. And now that's going to declare it that way. And that's going to be the same thing that creates our next filter. The one thing we've got to do now is get our collection. So let's do it here first. So we say var return data. I don't think that's important, but now we need to do collection.find. Right? Oh, seriously. Collection.find. And now there's async, but I'm not going to do async. There's many different finds, right? But I'm going to do the basic find with the filter. But again, look at the documentation for that because there's a lot of options. And then what we need to do in our find method is we need to make sure that we do our filter, which is what we created above. And then because there's going to be more than one, I'm just going to say, give me the first or default. That way I don't have any issues, okay? And then we need to close that off. Did I? F-I-L-T, yeah, okay. I guess I spelled that right. Okay. So, and then that's it. And so now let's go ahead and set our return, which is here. Now, again, you probably could do this in one line, but it's better to do it this way and then force it afterwards. So, and then we'll go into toString. And then that's it. So let's go ahead and grab this, and we're going to need this down here. Now, we're doing one thing I hate. We're doing redundant code. So we did redundant code. I hate it, but again, you can clean this up afterwards if you need to. Now, that should be all we need. The most important thing to me, though, is a try catch. So let's go ahead and stick that in there. And we're going to take our exception. Now, later on, I'll show you how to add a log file. Basically, I just force it to log out to something like the local drive. That way I can see what it's actually doing. So we can, and I don't want it to throw anything. What we can just do is say var error equals oops. Most importantly, I just want oops. I just want it to catch any errors. Now, of course, we'd write those errors out so we can see what they are, blah, 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 blah. But let's see where we are. Let's see if this works. Now, this was a lot of information, and I apologize about that, but that's why this is a video. You can stop it and rewind it again. The other ones won't take as long. Notice this is telling me space is out. The cool thing about ReSharper is I can say copy, and we can do refactor, and or is it code, and then reformat and clean up, and just say run, full cleanup. And now it's going to line things back up for me. Okay, cool. I wish, I think the Python does that for you, but Python is such a pain about keeping things in the right place. So let's talk about what we did. So we created our arguments. We have a save. Well, we have our Mongo information here. Okay. Once we do our save, we'll pass in data there, but it's only used for the save. So, or the create. Okay. So we're not going to do that yet. The one we're doing first is get. Okay, and I know you should do create first and then read and then update and delete if you don't know what CRUD stands for. But I'm going to do read first because to me that's probably the easiest. And then I'm just going to return back this data. So what we're doing is we're creating our connection to Mongo. Okay, and then from there we build our filters. Okay. From the parameters that we're passing in, right, from our arguments. And then here we're checking if string or int. Now, to do, I don't think you need to check, but that should be tested. Okay, and then, and if so, you would need float. Okay, because you can pass in a float as well. Now that's part of the to-do, but that's fine. Because that would get deleted anyway. And then what we're doing is once we get our collection, we're going to find it based off this filter that we're going to pass in. It's going to be a document, which is just JSON. We're going to convert it to a string just because the JSON has other information into it. And then we're just going to return our data. Our data, if you remember, yeah, that's fine. So if there's an error, we're going to return here. But one of these should return. And what that is doing is going to return it as a string. Oh, we didn't return that, now did we? So we need to return that. So we'll do that. That's what I was thinking. It's like, oh, we messed up somewhere. So we need to return that. So we can stick it right here. Let's make sure it's the right spot. Data to return. There we go. So now it looks right. So now we're going to return that data back up here to our output. Oh, actually our output should be below that. So where's our output? It's going to be in here. Here's our switch, our call and our get. Oh, here it is. So whatever the data is that gets filled here will be sent back to Javelin. So that's a lot of stuff, Tim. Dude, you got to put your money where your mouth is. So let's go fix this. All right, so first thing we want to do is, let's remove this one. So let's go Actions, Manage Extensions, and then I can go Installed Extensions, and I can remove that one. Now, the refresh on Javelin really stinks, so we'll do it this way, and then you should see that it's gone. So now the Mongo one's gone. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is close that. Do I still have that path? So we've done with references. Let's close that. Now, here is where something that I found, oh, that's our build. So yeah, we'll keep that one open. I found it was a massive oops. Okay. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the video, I said that there's something I don't like. Unfortunately, to add all these to Javelin so it could recognize the Mongo DLL, well, actually it's the references. Oh, we haven't built this one yet. That's why. So let's go ahead and delete that. Now let's build it. What you have to do is, unfortunately, copy all those. Oh, we got an error. What's going on? What happened? Yeah, I was afraid that find didn't look right. So let's see. VR find. Give me 1 second to look at it. Filter.equal. And then return collection. Find filter. No, I think it's right. Not sure if I'm missing a DLL. Oh yeah, I am missing. So we're missing the core. Okay. So again, that's part of the problems, right? So 90% of your problem is going to be just trying to figure that piece out. So let's go to, oh, you know what? I probably should, no, let's see, that's this extension. Let's not delete the extension one because that's my demo. This one. And then Mongo, because I went through and I added like, oh my gosh, do I need that? Do I need that? Do I need that? That's why I'm trying to keep this simple for you. But we do need Mongo driver core. So let's go ahead and copy that one. Paste. Okay. And now here, let's go back to our project. And let's add that dependency. Dependencies. Add. Seriously. 1 second. Should we add dependencies? But did I mess it over here? References NuGet. Like you could use NuGet, but NuGet can't find all this stuff. And that's kind of cumbersome as well. Bear with me. Uh-oh. Pause while I plug up my laptop here. There we go. I'm probably not going to pause the video. I'm just going to pause what I'm doing. Okay, so now let's add, where's my add references? Give me 1 second. Publish. Oh, add reference. There we go. See, you think that would be like on your references or something, you know, make it a lot easier to find, but that's okay. So here we need the core. Okay. So now the core's there. So now if we save and build, so Control S for save, and then build, build select a project. Now the cool thing is once I had this working, or at least added, then I could open up Visual Studio. So if you feel more comfortable with Visual Studio, start the project and open it up in Visual Studio. So now if we go over here and look, now I have these DLLs. Now what I had to do was copy those DLLs to the root of Javelin. And that's why when you go in here and look, you'll now see MongoDB. And when you do that, you have to restart Javelin whenever you do it. But it's not really a clean way that I could find to get these DLLs over into here other than just copying and pasting them over. Now your extension still goes in here. All right, so let's delete these and continue. That's fine. And you can delete them as long as Javelin's not running. And then we'll copy this one over because that's our main one. And continue. All right, now we open up Javelin. Now again, I don't like that because if you're building something massive, now what I'm doing is keeping the references in a clean folder. But if you're building something massive, you got a lot of these, you had to drop them over into the root of Javelin. And I really didn't like that. But let's go ahead and add a extension. We're going to browse. Hopefully it remembers. Nope. Let's see. Well, to do that, shortcut is to do this. Properties. Open file location. Just grab it right here. Copy. Paste. Go there. Extensions. Go here. Now, I still see the Mongo, and we're going to go ahead. Now, if you just say go, it's going to add it to this extensions folder. But I'm going to call it MongoDB, and I'm going to put a 1 there, just so we know that we're starting a new one. But on the last one, we'll put it in a clean folder. Okay, so we're going to import, and now it wants us to restart again. So we're going to go ahead and restart. And now we'll create another test, so new test. And let's go ahead and drag this one over, and drag it down. And now it's saying, hey, you've got, now see, here's what's important. Remember this information that we have over here? Let's get this here. This information, now you can see that that's what's here. Okay. So that's our Mongo URL. So what we're going to do now, I cheated, and I saved my settings because I don't want to retype them. Okay. So now this is local on my machine, so you can't steal it, but don't really care if you try. It's just local. So our connection string is here. And then let's go into here. Now this has to be a string value, so let's do it this way. Okay, and then what we're looking at here is, this is our table, our database. So let's go to our database, which is here. And the collection, oops. And the collection is grades. Okay. Now, we can verify that by looking here. So we have sample training and grades, and that's what we want. Now the action we want, remember, it's going to know what the action is a get. So display names, fine. Let's say get Mongo data. So we'll come back to the filter in a few seconds. The action we want is a get. Now again, I'm doing case sensitive. I mean, I'm making everything lowercase, so it doesn't really care. Okay, it's going to drop it to case sensitive anyway. So we'll get our URL. Our return data is not going to be anything yet. Oh no, it has to be something because we are returning something. So let's go down and see if we have any variables, which we don't. So we'll just say return data is a string. And notice it gave us an ugly mark, like, dude, you can't do that, that's cheating. All right, so there we go. And now, because it's an output wants that. Save data though, I didn't make it require, so we're gonna put something in there. Now our key here, we want it to be, now let's see if we can do this without cheating. We're just gonna grab the student ID too. So what we want our key to be is student ID. Okay, and now, oh, I keep doing a single quote because of Python, so sorry, it's double quote. And then we want our key value to be 2. Now it's gonna bring back a bunch of them. Oh no, I screwed that one up because I didn't make it an object, did I? Let's go look. No, I did not. Okay, so that's our first oops. Okay, so let's go key value. This needs to be an object. Okay, yay, that was fun. Good practice, good practice. So what we're gonna do is do it again. So let's go ahead and do this. And because I could do a string, but I don't think it's gonna bring back data. Just because in the database, it's not a string value. So let's do that. Now let's rebuild. But what I like to do is make sure things are clean before I rebuild. Just make sure I don't have any garbage linking around. So we'll do a rebuild. Like I said, it's good practice though. So build. Once that's done, we'll grab here, and all we need is this one. Now again, remember, if it's not working, copy all these. You don't need the PBD, right? That's just an error. I mean, just a debugging thing. Copy all those to the Javelin root, okay? But what we're gonna do, oh, we don't need that anymore, so let's close that one. I need Javelin though. Did I close Javelin? Nope, it's right here. So let's delete that one. Just again, I don't like having gibberish. And continue. And there we go. There's our extension. Now let's see if that worked. And so here's the most cumbersome thing. Well, not the most, but it's, you got to do this over and over. So we're going to add it and make sure you show extensions and make sure that's checked. Okay, because you can have more than one. Okay, so you can turn it off or turn it on. So if I had a lot of methods or a lot of classes, I don't have to show them all, right? So MongoDB, we'll just add it back, that's fine. And it said, hey, it worked, but notice it's not over here. So you got to close and reopen, and then it will show up. The only thing is we have to redo this again. So let's go ahead and drop that over there, but that's okay. So here, and we need to log it too. So first thing we do is just say return data. It's a string. Let's go to here, and that's going to be return data. Save data is going to be blank. Now I recommend this. You see why I save this to a file now, because you'll grab it a couple of times. So let's go ahead and grab this. This is our connection value. Our database is the training one, and then our collection is grades. Uh-oh, stuck in the wrong spot, didn't I? Okay, it goes here. And then this is grades. That almost became ugly because we had an error that we didn't know why. And now our key value is going to be, let's look at Mongo, because I don't think I have that in the log file because mine's a little bit different. I tested yesterday. So the key is this. And now our value should be a 2. And notice we didn't get the error this time. So it's really that simple. Let's save. This desktop. We had one that we were working on, right? Test flows. Yeah, we'll just overwrite that one. We still got an error. Why do we have an error? Okay, is anything? Oh, our action. Our action has to be get. Okay. Now our error's gone away. So now what we'll do is write this out. So let's just grab a log, put it there. And what we'll say is, what I like to do is put something at the beginning of the log so I know that it's mine. So here we'll say data equals plus return data. Okay. And then okay, and now let's save it again. Always save because Javelin doesn't save by itself. So save, and then we'll run in verbose mode, and hopefully we'll have data. There we go. We have data. That simple, that cool, right? So now I'm excited. Hopefully you're excited because we made our first task work. The other ones will go by fast. Don't worry about that. So here is our JSON. Now we only did first and default. Now it gave us 2 because only one of them's writing the data, this one. The other one's just verifying it. So this is the data it returned. Now from here, you can add this. This is just JSON, right? So then you can just treat it as JSON inside your code. The only thing is you probably would want to remove this unique ID, but you may not. So, all right, so let's go ahead and add the other pieces real quick. Now that you saw that, and like I said, we'll make it move a little bit faster just because I don't want this to last forever. Now, the next one is, so what we'll do now is we'll do our insert. Now our insert, again, it should be first, which is create, but I like using the word insert, but I'm gonna grab this. You know what, we'll use create because we're doing CRUD, right? So create, and I'm just grabbing that. You'll see why. We're going to go ahead and grab this because it's the same. Again, I don't like using redundant code, but you kind of have to in this. Well, you don't have to. You can clean this up, put this in its own little class or its own little method, and just execute that every time and have it return as an object, right? There's things like that you can do. But here, instead of the key value, I need to just string save data, right? So that's all we're doing. So actually, they call it different. They call it a document. So let's stick with their terminology. So, and then I need this to be inside of a try catch. I'm not sure why I missed that, but that's okay. Best practice, always use a try catch. Always, 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 always. Let's see. So this should be, you have to have something here, right? So oops equals oops. Okay. And then here we're going to return nothing until we get it in place. Okay, cool. So now all we're going to do is very simple. Believe it or not, this is easier than the other one. So we have our collection. What we need to do is create a document, because remember, it always does a document. So var document equals, this is going to be our new based on document. Document. Okay, notice it had like array. See, I didn't play with any of that stuff, but you purposely could. And this kind of, it has brackets like that, not like this, because you're creating almost like a JSON file. And let's go ahead and close it. Now this got kind of tricky. But here you can actually do BASIC because I want to pass in JSON. My user is not going to know what a BASIC document is. And then we just do that. So what that does is that's going to take a flat JSON file, we're going to look at in a few minutes, and it's going to convert it to a BASIC document, and then we're going to save it to our collection. And that's all you got to do. So collection.insert1. Now there's a lot of insert many. You can make this an async if you want by using tasks and stuff. But since we're using Javelin, I'm okay doing it this way. Oh, I'm sorry. Document. Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. So here, what I like to say is instead of that, put it down here and just say save as completed. Because that will come back to Javelin and you can use it for your logs, right? So how cool is that? So that's fine. This is just telling me my spacing's off, but we'll take care of that with a cleanup when we're done. But that's all you really gotta do. The good thing about JetBrains, it's always trying to help you. I think it's telling me I can do it all in one action. Make method get absolute. Yeah, I don't care about all that. So we're good here. And that's not a get. I'm sorry. Did I screw up my get? No, okay, that's here. So we're gonna call this create. All right, create. Okay, perfect. So now we need to go do our switch. Case, so we'll call it create or get. How about insert? There we go. Because you got to think about the end user. Most end users be like, dude, I have no idea what that is. And it's going to be a lot like this one. So we're just going to go ahead and grab this. And notice what I accidentally lost my default. So if you don't know how the switch works, it's looking to see what that value is. And if it can't find it, this value right here. So if that value equals get, if that value equals insert, or if it can't find any of them, it's just going to fall through. So it's always good to have a default because it saves you from an error. Now, what we don't want here, though, is our filter. And we're just going to pass in our temp, if I can spell it. Oops, not URL, save. There we go. Oh, this needs to be create. There we go. Perfect. See how easy that was? Now, we got it saved. I'm not going to break and test it. I'm going to go ahead and create the other ones because they're going to be pretty fast too. Okay, so let's go ahead, create. Let's just do, what is our CRUD functionality? So it's create, let's put them in order. Read, so technically that one should be read. Let's put some parameters here. Create. Read. Update, so our next one's update. Update. And our last one's going to be, of course, you guessed it, delete. So let's go and grab this. And this one should be delete. Okay. So this one's update and delete. Because remember, our goal here is to do CRUD functionality on Mongo inside Javelin. So our get's working, our insert's working, so now we need to do update. Now, update, unfortunately, needs a couple filters. So it's not going to be this safe. It's going to need a couple of things. So on the update, we need to think about, first we need our key filter. So let's just go ahead and grab our key filter value. But more importantly, we also need to tell it what we're updating, right? Now this one really could use some thought process, and you'll see what I'm getting at when we build this one. So temp, I mean, what did we call it? I think we just called it update, didn't we? No. Well, let's just look. Oh, you know what? We didn't put it in place, did we? No, we didn't put it in place. Okay. So what we need is 2 more of these. Because if you look at an update really is the same thing as a filter. It's just with a different command. And you'll see that in a few minutes. So required update key. So basically in JSON, what key do I want to update? And that's what it's asking, right? So it's pretty straightforward. So we'll call this one update data key, just to be consistent. And this one needs to be an object. It is. Okay, I just want to make sure because again, it could be an integer, it could be a string. Update key. And we'll just call this update. Now we need to go down here and we'll grab our filters. We'll copy these two. Okay, and then from here, this one's going to be update. Instead of filter, we'll just call it update. And just do a copy and paste because it's faster. Okay, update, and then over here, update, and then update. Okay, now you all are probably taking a coffee break right now or chilling out or something, but let's get this. The good thing about a video, you can always come back to it, right? So unfortunately, I can't. So we're going to pass in our key, and then we're going to pass in our temp update value. Okay, cool. And now we need to create this method. So again, I'm just going to use the power resharper. We're going to create our update method. The reason I did that is because notice it created the variables for me. And that's perfect. So we're going to get rid of that. And this is going to return nothing. So let's go ahead and get that out of place. Let's go ahead and, it didn't take my naming conventions. So what we're going to do is, just to be consistent, I want it below all this because it comes below here. Okay. What I want to do though is, you know what, do I care? Okay, I don't care. What I was going to do is match these, but you know what, it's fine. I don't like having redundant names like here and here because then it gets kind of confusing, but that's okay. Let's just get it working. So from there, what we're looking at is, first thing we're going to do in our update is grab our connections, right? So let's go ahead and we'll just grab them from here. And it's going to yell because I don't have the same naming conventions, but that's okay. So we'll say temp URL, database, and collection. Okay, cool. So that's got our connections. So the next thing we've got to do is, we're not going to have a return. Technically, you could return the data, but we're going to say update complete. And before we go too far, now in Visual Studio, I can say wrap. I don't know if I can do it here. Let's just see if we can wrap real quick, like wrap something around this. Comment lines. Maybe you see it and I don't, but that's okay. All right, we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. So we're going to hit tab, and we're going to say try, and we're just going to, because normally in Visual Studio, you can just wrap this around that, and you don't have to redo it like I just did, but that's okay. Say that, threw that one off. There we go. And here, we'll just say var temp equals, oops. Okay, no, I keep forgetting that's a string. Oops. Okay, there we go. So, and then this, though, the reason I did that is because we want this below our catch. So no matter what happens, it's still going to return that. So first thing we got to do is build a filter. Now we built a filter up here, right? So let's grab our filter. I'm not going to do that whole conversion thing because I don't think you really need it, to be honest with you. But let's go ahead and grab our filter because we've got to say, what are we updating? Okay. So our filter key is going to be here. And our filter value is here, okay? Now, this is a good test to see if you need that or not, because I'm pretty sure you don't. Now, believe it or not, it's really this simple. So now we've got to build an update reference. Again, you need your builders, and it's got to be a Bison document. It's really hard to say when you're used to saying JSON. Then it's an update method, and we want to set the value, okay? See, there's a lot of options you can do. So I recommend, you know, just taking your time and playing with this and see what all options you have, because, you know, I definitely don't have time for that type of video. Now here we want to our key and our value. Now, believe it or not, this will only work with a one-level JSON. It doesn't work with an array. It does have the option to do array, but then you have to do multiple filters. And I may show you that later, but the documentation is online. So I'd recommend, we're going to do the update one, just like all the other ones. You can do, you know, a lot of that's kind of like link, L-I-N-Q. So if you've used that before, we want to link our, oh, not a flow, so our filter and our update method. Okay, our option, I guess. So, and that's it. That's all you really got to do. So the only thing I recommend to do is research update an array. And what I mean by an array is when you have embedded data, if you don't know what that means, like here, this is considered an array, right? Because it's embedded data. So I would have to say find student ID 2 scores dot quiz, and it would give me that data. So it's really just concatenating filters, but you'd have to figure out how to smartly do that with Javelin, right? So you'd probably maybe pass in a JSON file and then parse that JSON file, because in here you can concatenate this and just say, okay, now give me another one like that. And then put this there. Okay, and then that would be a little bit deeper, and then sadly I'd have to go one more. Let me show you how this works, just so you wouldn't have to research too much. But let's say if I'm looking for this one, the first one's going to be student ID. Okay, student ID equals 2. Now I'm getting all kind of errors because these aren't variables. And then the next one is from there scores. Okay, and I want the first one, and it's an array. So I think that would work. That's something you'd have to look at. Maybe I'm wrong there. No. This is, so you really could do, yeah. So from then we do scores.type, because I think that's what it is, right? Scores, yeah, an array, because then type. So your dot notation would work, and then here would be quiz. Okay, I can't spell quiz, Q-U-I-Z. And then from there, that would work to give me that layer. And then on my update, I would have to do something like var update equals. From there, I could probably do, so it's going to be update dot set. I mean, with all this up here in the way as well, right? Because let's be this. Okay. I hate when people tell you things and you really like, what does he say? So I'll go ahead and show you. And then here I can do dot notation. So scores dot root dot score, and then my value of whatever the value is. That should work, right? And even if it doesn't, look online, but that should give you an idea. Control KC is comment. Yeah. So that should give you an idea of how passing an array, but you'd have to be able multiple of these, and you'd have to figure that out. So what I would do is I'd pass in a JSON and then parse that JSON, and then you could figure out how deep it is. And you'll see passing in JSON when we do the insert. Then set it, okay? But again, you'd have to dynamically build that. Way much more time than I want to spend on this. Okay, so, I mean, at least today. So, because we're almost done, and I want to be done. So now we need our delete. Okay, our delete, though, is going to be filters. So let's, before we tell it to do it, let's copy this. And because it's going to create the keys for us. And then here, I'll say, create method. Okay, again, there's a shortcut key for that. That's one of the powerful things about using JetBrains is their shortcut keys. But I'm going to be honest with you, I don't remember them because I've been using Python so much. I think it's Control K or maybe Alt K. I do a lot of stuff on Mac. But anyway, you can come up here and look at your key references. And I recommend doing that if you use this a lot. And just, you know, be a master of this tool because it does so much. I prefer this tool over Visual Studio, and I've been using Visual Studio since I was a kid. All right. So delete, first thing we need, let's do our try catch first this time. That way you don't have to move things around. And var, oops, equals, oh no. So there's a shortcut key I didn't know existed. Oops. Okay, and then what we need to do is return deletion, delete. Well, we'll just say delete is complete. It rhymes anyway. All right, so now for here, you guessed it, we got to do our connection. Let's grab it from, well, delete should be last anyway, right? CRUD. So let's put it below the bottom. Okay, and now let's just go ahead and grab this because that should be the same. And I know we're going to need a filter because we're going to know what we want to delete. So let's go ahead and grab those. We'll put that there. Okay, and notice we didn't have to rename it because we took it from this one. So that's great. Now the delete, believe it or not, is a lot simpler. So once we have our filter, we want to say, what is the filter? So the key to the delete command is going to be collection.delete. So you want to think about your collection as what you do in your options on insert, update, delete, right? So those are the things that that you want to look at. But we're going to delete one, and the delete one is going to be our filter. And wait, go away, this filter. Okay, and that's it. So that is completely it. Now we're done. We did all of our Mongo actions. So let's talk about them real quick, and then we'll jump into Javelin, right? So let's get rid of this one because we don't need this one. So we did all the CRUD functionalities, the get, well, technically, well, you get it, right? Create, update, delete. Bad video of me not keeping things in order, but that's fine. So what we had to do is we had to inherit from the native activity, which comes from the common, not the one that I had before. In fact, I probably could just remove it. Extensions, let's just say delete, and we're good there because we don't need that one. What we need is this one. And then what that did was we created our arguments that's going to show up. You saw that, right? So we have one for URL, our database, our collection, the action we want to perform. Okay, so that the reason I say this because that's not part of Mongo. That's just being a good developer. And then save data. I'm going to show you how to pass that in. Then we need to filter a key, filter a value. We want to update a key, we want to update a value. Again, you want to figure out how to do this dynamically, not one at a time. But again, the beautiful thing about Javelin, you could make it a loop, right? And just pass in your values and do it that way. And that would work perfectly fine. Well, not the array. Sorry, the array wouldn't work. I guess it would. Anyway, you can be smart about it. So, and then you can return your data. Now, the only method you have to override, other than the parameters in here, is the execute. Okay, the execute, you declare your parameters as whatever they've been passed in. And technically, you didn't have to do it this way. You could have just used these down here, but I did it this way to make it more visual. And then we do our action, our insert. You know, we're passing in the variables, our get, our update, our delete, and of course our default, which does nothing. You could put an error message here, return it to say something like, you know, action not supported, you know, because if somebody says, hey, I want, instead of insert, they say, give me a put. Okay, well, put will fall through because we're not declaring it. And then whatever value gets fed into data, we're returning that to our value, okay? I guess I could show you how to do that real quick. Data equals method not supported. Okay, there you go. And that's what you got to do. And then your default would say, oh, method not supported, and that gets returned back to Javelin. Now, to your CRUD functionalities. Okay. Now, to be clean, the ReSharper's even telling me that. I misspelled that. To be clean, I would make these internal, not public. But the cool thing is, if you know how classes work to test this, and I'll show you my other one in a few minutes, you can actually build another project, a command line tool, inherit this DLL, and then you can just execute these and test them, right? Let's do a clean code real quick. So let's do, where's my clean code? Clean format and run, because I don't like how that looks. Oh, sorry. I gotta select everything, code, and then clean code, and then just say run. There we go. Reason being because it makes it nice and pretty for us. So here, create, once you make your connection, the key is just passing this document, and that's kind of tricky. It's really just a JSON file. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that here shortly. And that's our create and insert one onto the collection. Get has a little bit more just because we put these in here. Again, you don't I don't think you have to do that, but the key to that, you don't know what this object is. Okay, this is also a good way to kind of help protect you, because what if the object is a JSON file, right? Or something that has to be parsed. So you could do that this way. And the only thing this really does, once you create your filter, is you do a find. That's it. On the update, same thing, create the filter. You create an update, which is your key value that we want to update. So I'm going to find the method, and then I want to update the value of that key. Okay. And again, your collection update. Delete, same thing as the filter, and delete. Okay, and that's it. So let's save it. And let's just go ahead and, again, I like to clean this folder. In .NET, there is a clean folder. I'm pretty sure there's one in here that I haven't found. Again, I don't really, probably just in today's the most I've used Writer. I usually do everything in Python these days, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is build. Okay, build is going to give me some new DLLs. I'm going to grab this one, copy. I'm going to go to Javelin. We do have our extension, so let's go remove it. So manage extensions. Remove this one. We're just removing that one. And we're going to close. And then we'll get it. I physically like deleting it, so I know that I don't overwrite. And it sometimes Windows is just tricky like that, because it's like, oh, you overwrote it, and then you didn't really, so your changes didn't go in effect. So there we go. And now we'll go back to Javelin. And what we're going to do is we're going to add that one. You've seen me do this 100 times. So browse. Hopefully, nope, keeps taking me there. It's not where I want to go. Let's go to our extensions. Okay, we're almost done. We just got to do some testing. And I'm going to be honest with you, it may error out, but I think you get the concept of what's going on. So MongoDB. The only reason I say that is because we did this one pretty fast. Import, and then we're going to close and reopen, and then it should be there. And then we can start building. So there's our Mongo. So we're going to create a new one, and we'll just call this test 2. We're going to drop that into place. Now we're going to actually have some fun. So we're going to name this one. First thing we're going to do is create. Okay. So with create, let's go get our cheat file, because there's a lot of it. So what I did to create is when you go here, you can actually download one of these. So export collection. If you have this selected, then it's going to download that one. I don't want the ID, but I do want the rest of this. So I'll select my output, select file, call it grades2, because you can see where I downloaded it yesterday, and then export, and then show file. It just goes to the folder, which is kind of weird. So we'll just say close, and then close, and it's right here. And I'm going to open it up with not Visual Studio Code, because it does a good job of cleaning up JSON. Now in here, the only thing I did was I deleted all these others, right? So just say drop to the bottom, and this appears to be an array. I don't think we need an array because we're only doing one, but if I go to the bottom and get rid of that, that's there. And now just make some changes. Okay, that's all I did. But the one that I did was this one. Oh no, I didn't do it there. But we'll look at it over here because I copied it over here because I didn't want to redo it. So it's right here. So what I did was I took a user that I know didn't exist, and I did some actions on it. So let's go back and look, make sure we don't have one that exists. And then if we go to training, grades, again, you can do, these are the default ones that come with Mongo whenever you install it. So what we want to do, we want to, let's do a little filter, student ID, that should pop up for me, it did. And we want to, let's see if there's a, oops. I don't think there's a 2. Okay, there's not. So we're going to use this as our ID. So I'm just going to put this over in place. And that's good. So what we're going to do is click here. And let's try to get a little real estate. We'll be able to get too much. So create our filter key we don't need. So let's just go down the list. Okay, so we're going to do an insert. Okay, we're not doing a filter, so we don't need student ID equals whatever. So what we do need, filter keys, we're not doing a filter because this is a create. We're not doing this one. Our action to perform is going to be an insert. Our collection is grades. Okay. Our database is sample training. Again, if you don't know this, hopefully this is stuff you already know, but it's just right here, right? Okay, that's database. That's your collection. Sorry. Yeah. So, and then here, this is our connection string. And again, if you don't know that, when you first open it up, it says, where do you want to connect? There's a button that says edit. You can just edit it. Data 2. Well, let's just go see if, I don't think I have a variable created. I don't, so we're just gonna call it data, not data 2. So let's go back up here. Our return is data. Now, we don't have an update here and we don't have an update there because we want whatever JSON we pass in to be our golden record. Now, this is just JSON, okay? The trick is I had to double quote the double quotes because it's a string. Now, you can, again, I do it in the video for how to call an API. You can parse a JSON object, right? And that's what I would recommend doing. It would just make it so much easier than this hardcode stuff because you're going to want to build this dynamically. So wherever your JSON file is coming from, have it as a J object, parse it to a string, and then just pass it in, and you wouldn't have to do all this. In fact, I might have done that on the other Mongo video. But what we want to do is this is our save data. Okay. Again, to make it think that it's a string, unfortunately, JSON has to have this as a string value, and that's a string value. I had to escape that by using double quote the double quotes, okay? So what we're looking at is our student ID. We're adding a score. We're adding all the other stuff, including the arrays that makes up that file. And now what we're going to do is put a log in here so we can capture our return. So let's control flow, log. And this is going to be our data. So we'll just say data equals, just so it's easier to see. And then we call this data. Okay, that's simple. Now, fingers crossed. Let's hope this works. Desktop, test flows. We'll just grab this one. That's fine. Replace it. And let's run it verbose and cross your fingers. Okay, it says we were complete. Let's just do a find. There's our document. How cool is that? So if I compare it to our JSON, we have our student ID. We have our exam score is 49. Notice these are kind of floats. 18. Our homework and homework. We have 2 homeworks. Was it? Yeah, there's 2 homeworks. Okay, cool. Again, I just exported one, changed some numbers, and imported it in. So now our next CRUD functionality is read. So let's go ahead and copy these 2. Okay, and we'll bring them down to here. Now I don't want to run create again. So we're going to set this to the side and we're going to read. Okay. Now for our read, we shouldn't have to change too much because that's the reason I like to copy and paste because it keeps all that in there. This is not imported. We're not going to do that, but we do need our filter. So let's go see what I grabbed for a filter. I think it's just student ID like this. I'm not even going to waste time because I know it is. So filter key, which is here, and our value is this big number here. If I go through and find read or get, yeah, it's right here. Notice I used a different one yesterday, but that's it. So I'm passing in only the filter ID and the filter key that I want to read from. So let's go ahead and save and let's run verbose and complete. And we didn't get data. Why didn't we get data? Grades. Oh, you know why? Oh my goodness, because we didn't change this. That probably errored out, which is totally fine because there was nothing there to do. So if I go over here and hit refresh, let's do a find again. Notice it didn't change. Okay, so that's fine. So now let's do it again. It's very important. Change your method, or your action. I guess we could call it a method. Now start. Let's do verbose logging, and now we have our data. There we go. So it returned her back to us. Now again, from there, you could write it to a log. You can parse it out because it's JSON, but I can tell it's mine because that's why I put that in there. And it did return back the right user. So, yeah. Okay, I was thinking the 101, but that was yesterday. So now what's next? The next one is going to be, let's see, update. So let's copy these over here. Let's delete that one. Bring read over here. And what we're going to do, though, just for kicks and giggles, is start building out a workflow. And this should be update. Update. Okay, now for an update, we have to actually tell it what we want to update. So let's go back over here. Again, I'm going to cheat. Now, update is here. The student ID and all that's fine. Our collection, our database. What I'm going to do is update this class ID. Just make it easier to see. So update key is going to be class ID. This has to be a string. Our value, though, is an object. So let's go see what our class ID. Our class ID is 480. So why don't we make it, what did I do up here? 483. That's fine. Just grab it. That way if it has a reference somewhere, then I don't think it does. I don't think that matters, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and, oh, see, I almost messed up again. Update. Okay, so let's save. Wouldn't be a big deal. I just wouldn't know how to read that because it doesn't exist. So reverse logging. It says our update has changed. Let's go look at Mongo. Now notice it's 480. Let's go ahead and just do a find refresh, I think. Yep, there we go. Now it's 483. How cool is that? All right, so last one, the deadly one. So let's grab these, copy, paste. We'll just bring those down here. And let's bring these down over here. Oh, sorry, let me break the point. There we go, that makes it easier. Okay, now we'll bring these down here. Okay, and then this one needs to be a delete. Now, the good news is, if I, oh wait, I'm sorry, this first. The good news is the delete is the same as the, seriously? Basically, I just got to pass it a filter. I don't know what this thing's doing. It's going crazy on me. Here we go. So, delete. Now, over here, we're going to make this one a delete. And to prove it, I'm just going to do it all caps, if I spell it right. Okay. And then we may do one that doesn't work, and just so you can see the message it comes back. Now, here, return data. We got our class ID. These aren't important because we're not looking at the update methods. What we are looking at is the filter methods, which is already there. Student here. So we want to delete this message. Oh, I have to pass in something. Here we go. So, and then that's it. Now you could, this whole error about passing in something, you could probably write your code to say if it's null or whatever, not make it required. To make something not required, you just, pretty common sense, take this out. That's how you gotta do. Okay, but let's see what happens. Cross your fingers, we got our delete in there, 102. So we should be deleting where student ID equals 102. Okay, verbose logging. And just like that, it's complete. Let's go see what's going on over here. And let's just do a find. And now it's gone. How cool is that? So we just did a complete CRUD functionality. What I'm going to do is one last thing. And I'm going to be stupid. And I'm going to say, let's create it. Let's read it. Let's update it. And then let's delete it. Okay. So let's go ahead and save. That's a complete CRUD functionality workflow. And I'm just going to say verbose logging so we can see all of our messages. And there we go. Now let's copy all this to a notepad so we can see. Okay. Now if I go over here and refresh, it's not there because we ran the delete. Still not there, 102. But if I look here, here's our save data, okay, which turned out fine because our read data returned it. All right, we're looking for this. And then if I come down to our next one's going to be update. So our update worked. Now you could return the data on an update. That'd probably be something wise. Like you could call the update and the get together and return the data. That way you can see your update change. And then of course the last one is your delete, and the delete worked too. Excuse me, a lot of talking. Now that was a lot of work, but we did it in less than an hour. Now it doesn't help that I did it last night, so I worked out all the bugs. The biggest gotchas, so let's start. You could actually use this MongoDB as your reference because there's a lot of things in here. I did. It's just MongoDB, go to development, right? Or just Google developing, right? So it shows you every command that you can do, which is a lot. But if you notice, this is drivers, C#, and then what you can do with it. Okay. So, and then just find it, because you'd want to make this way more active than just this. This is just the basics. And then the other thing is go to the, I have it on my desktop somewhere because I knew I wanted to show you. That's the API. Yeah, this one. Go here. Just log into to support.com, go to documents, or however you get there. If need be, I'll put this in a link in the chat. I mean, not chat, but in the video, whatever, YouTube. That way you can get to those two. And follow this. The only catch is setting it up was very tricky, but this works for all flows, right? Maybe I want to build something totally different than just a Mongo. But I was looking at the Mongo video last time. There was a lot of views, like 1.2K. But the problem is, what I realized is what I'm doing is I'm using the import method and I'm calling batch files. This is a true plugin. So what that means is I could use this plugin over and over. We used it 1, 2, 3, 4 times. That's no different than me coming over here, grabbing it and dragging it over. And the good thing is once you set it up, you can share this with other people, right? So, and you can include it in other flows. It truly is a plugin. So maybe I want to build another custom plugin to send me a text message. I don't know. Anything you can imagine you can do in C#, or I think it only supports C# and Visual Basic maybe. But the example was in C#. I know C#. I always joke and say we don't program in Visual Basic because we're adults. But I know C# very well. For those who don't know my background, I've been programming since the 80s. And I started with C++ and C, and then later went into C# and .NET. And so my background has a lot of Microsoft to it. Later on, I went into Java, and then, of course, Python. And then I've been doing databases ever since back then as well, because you can't build an application without some form of a database. Now, if you really want to know my history, just look me up on LinkedIn, right? Just, you know, if you need this, I'll put it in the chat too, but this tells my resume, blah, 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 blah. But that's beside the point. My point is, I'm digressing now. My point is, if you know C#, if you know programming languages, you can build your own custom plugins or extensions to do whatever you want them to do inside of Javelin. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I'm going to cut this now because it's very long. If anybody has any questions, because there was a lot, please watch the video. This is just a one stringer. Maybe I'll put it up on GitHub or something. But I'd rather you try it on your own because there's so much more you could do with this. For an example, for the update, passing in an array. And passing in the array would be no different than how I passed in this one, right? You would just parse it as an array. And then instead of passing this in as a string, maybe passing it as a J object, right? Or J array. And I have videos out there on how to do stuff like that. So that's it. Hope this was helpful. Wow, what a video. I'll maybe try to cut it in parts. It just depends on how YouTube flips out about it. And hopefully I don't have to go back and make any mistakes because this is probably one of the longest videos I've done. All right. Hope it was helpful, and see you next time.